I don't know why the death of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was so shocking to me. She was 87. She had pancreatic cancer, had been in and out of the hospital for months. She was my grandmother. I'd have expected it. Instead, I felt like I got kicked in the head. I didn't know her, never so much as shook her hand. I didn't really follow her career that closely. And yet, it took me hours to feel like I could catch my breath. I suppose it's because we've been watching the Constitution get torn, beaten, kicked around these last 4 years. We're watching armed men take to the streets and hearing calls from our own president to kill peaceful protesters. We're hearing leader after leader tell us to be careful about our election, and at this point, we're not even sure after 240 years that we'll have a peaceful transition of power. And our one hope, our one steady, sober body that might bring us stability is the Supreme Court, oddly and carefully balanced, but so fragile that the death of one tiny woman can topple it and potentially take the rest of the country down with it. And that's just what we're dealing with since Friday. It's been a hell of a week, a hell of a month, a hell of a year. I keep saying it, but it's really true. It has been a mind-boggling 4 years, utterly chaotic and altogether exhausting. So for today, I'd like to offer us a break. The only way we survive is with a regular practice of spiritual renewal. We can do what we need to do as long as we take time to rest and heal. So let's do that together this morning. Meagan led us through a wonderful meditation. I'm going to ask us to breathe again. Will you breathe with me? Let's all just close our eyes and take one deep breath. Hold it in as the oxygen brings refreshed life. And let it out slowly as your body relaxes. Let's do it one more time. A deep breath in and out again. What's wonderful for you today? What evidence do you have that despite all the anxiety and grief, this is in fact a wonderful world? I posed this question on Facebook and got 103 comments. I got pictures of gardens and beaches. I got a whole lot of kittens. One man told about holding a woman's hand as she lay dying. And a woman who struggled to end a very abusive relationship talked about getting married again. Plenty of people mentioned their kids and grandkids, the laughing, the visiting, the great developmental leaps, the sheer adorableness and demonstrations of love. A woman grieving after the loss of her 2-year-old son spoke of an equal force of generosity, awe, and kindness, keeping her upright. There were pictures of sunsets and picnic dinners and evidence of thoughtfulness. There was talk of food forests and adoptions and friendship and good books by favorite authors. Some people were rejoicing in alone time while others were equally happy for time with others. Some were celebrating the return of blue skies on the West Coast and others returned to school on the East. And all of them, regardless of the challenges they're facing, and some of them are living through life-altering pain, all of them were able to find some kind of wonderful, something in this world that continues to give them life, something joyful and beautiful there for the taking. These are the things that make for a wonderful world. For me these days, It's electricity. In my town, we've been losing electricity with some frequency. Some of you know this. You've had to cancel a few meetings because the power is out again. I've started to prepare for it rather than get caught like I had no idea it might happen again. It might be a little PTSD or it's just good planning, but either way, my closet is filled with bottles of water because I have a well. When we lose power, we lose water. So it's filled with bottles of water, food that's been canned, batteries are all new, flashlights have been checked and placed for easy and immediate retrieval, not unlike fire extinguishers. Either might be needed with utmost urgency. The sudden loss of electricity transfers every priority, and all the ways we live are lost immediately while we kill time and find ways to manage and wait with various degrees of patience for things to be normal again. And I wrote those sentences about electricity on my laptop in a well-lit, temperature-controlled room. And while doing it, acutely aware of my actions, I thought to myself, this is a wonderful world. What a wonderful world and a moment to be alive when a woman can write a sermon from her own home, legally co-owned, on a computer in late September. It might be chilly outside, but it's warm and bright inside, and all of those things were unthinkable for most of human history and are still difficult to imagine in some parts of the world. So how lucky I am to be here and now. How lucky we all are with our modern medicine and free education and rights to things like speech and choice of religion. I'm not naive. I know how hard our ancestors had to fight for some of these things. Maybe that makes them even more precious, although I didn't have to fight for most of them, nor did anyone in any generation of my family that I've actually met. I had to do a little wrangling around the right to ordination, but that was mostly about finding the right faith tradition. There are still plenty of good choices for women. It is a wonderful world. The inspiration for this sermon was, at least in part, Louis Armstrong's song by the same name. And don't worry, we will hear that song after the sermon, and we're going to bless our worship associates, and then we'll hear the song. In it, he points to the simplest of things. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright, blessed day, the dark, sacred night. These are all things we see ourselves. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. And in the midst of these everyday things, he thinks to himself, what a wonderful world. I have moments like that. Moments of being completely taken by how gorgeous everyone is. I can be overcome with love completely out of nowhere. A few years ago, as the worship year was starting, I was in a different church and I found myself dreading the beginning of the year. There were too many things happening. Anxiety was high, the bank account was low, and I wasn't sure I had the fortitude for another year. I got all the way to homecoming, or what that church called ingathering, with just this awful sense. But that Sunday, people showed up with such joy, the hugging and the laughing. I was at the door greeting people, but before the service started, I actually needed to get away. I went to the front of the room. I turned my back to everybody. I didn't want anyone to see me because my face was wet with tears. I just couldn't stop crying. This one woman saw me. Of course, somebody had to see me. I'm standing in the front of the room. I don't know why I think I'm inconspicuous, but a woman comes up to me and said, are you okay? And I said to her, I forgot how wonderful this is. The dread had melted away, and in its place, what was left was love. There are moments like that. We've all had them. We're seized by love, knocked over by beauty. Times we slide into joy without warning. In the middle of downtown Louisville, Kentucky, is an unusual bronze plaque. Usually markers like that commemorate a battle, a political figure, some natural or historical feature, but the one on the corner in Louisville marks a mystical experience, one that happened to the monk Thomas Merton in the spring of 1958. It was a moment of falling in love with people, a conversion, he later called it. He writes, in Louisville, at the corner of 4th and Walnut, in the center of the shopping district, I was suddenly overwhelmed with the realization that I loved all those people, that they were mine and I theirs, that we could not be alien to one another, even though we were total strangers. It was like waking from a dream of separateness, of self-isolation in a special world, a world of renunciation and supposed holiness. This sense of liberation from an illusory difference was such a relief and such a joy to me. I almost laughed out loud. I have the immense joy of being a man, a member of a race in which God himself became incarnate, as if the sorrows and stupidities of the human condition could overwhelm me. And now I realize what we all are. And if only everybody could realize this. But it can't be explained. There is no way of telling people that they are all walking around shining like the sun. For Thomas Merton, not only is it a wonderful world, but we are wonderful in it. So what is it for you? What's wonderful in your life? I would love for you to share with us in the chat. I know it's not conventional, but open up the chat and tell us what's wonderful. What in this world makes you know this is a wonderful place? A puppy, a baby, the view from your living room, maybe it's the cooler air, cookies you baked last night. Tell us. And keep telling us. Tell us today, tell us right now, but tell us again tomorrow. We've got a difficult few months in front of us, maybe a difficult few years. Whatever it is, we need to know that wherever we are, whatever is happening, there is still something wonderful. There are reasons to be joyful. There are acts of kindness. There is evidence of generosity. We need our strength to get through whatever is ahead of us, and being grateful for clear skies and electricity will help us on our way. So right now I can't actually see the chat, but I'm hoping that you're writing and I'm hoping that you're reading. Bear witness to all the things that prove to your community that this is, despite appearances, a wonderful world. The real wonder is that in the midst of what's happening in our lives and around the planet, we can stand on the corner of 4th and Walnut, or wherever that is for you, and fall in love. We can look around us, look at each other, and hold all the complexity of our lives, and still, again and again, affirm what a wonderful world this is. One of the things that makes this world so good is the way we share our lives. I know some of you very well. There are some of you I hardly know at all. But there's a way we are all very close because we worship together every week. And that's an intimate thing to do. Together we bring our deepest concerns, our fears and worries, our broken hearts, and we lay them down in our shared space. And we ask each other to be careful, to mind your step now that I've lain my broken heart down. And regardless of how well we know each other, we understand that this is where we go to heal. That it is our love for each other and our shared concern for all the beings on this planet that make this central to our emotional and spiritual well-being. This shared worship requires many people to make it wonderful. Last week, we blessed and commissioned and thanked plenty of people, but we didn't include our worship associates who couldn't be with us that day. Today, we'll do that. It's a wonderful place to come for rest or inspiration or renewal. Some people experience that as observers and some as participants. I'm very grateful that we have 3 powerhouse women who are serving as our worship associates. Each of them, Brenda, Nafisa, and Janice, are gorgeous and are a blessing on our church, as I hope we are a blessing for them. Reverend Chris, Meagan Henry, our intern minister today, and I are going to offer them our blessing as we bring this new year. There are so many ways this is a wonderful world, and this shared worship, shared leadership, shared ministry is one of the ways wonderful lives in all of us. This is for our worship associates, Janice, Nafisa, and Brenda. I'm wishing that you could see them all clearly in front of you. Reverend Chris, are you off mute too?
I am ready.
Good. Ours is a shared ministry.
Ours is a shared ministry.
Ours is a shared ministry.
We are all called to live the life of the Spirit.
We are called to serve each other.
We are called to inspire, to lead, and to teach.
When members of this church step forward to become active participants in our shared faith life, we all benefit.
We benefit when there are more eyes, more ears, and more voices.
We benefit when there are more experiences and more ways of knowing.
Because of this, I'm very grateful that Brenda, Janice, and Nafisa are active members of our worship team, serving each week as our worship associates.
As we begin this church year together, let's offer them our blessing.
As we begin this church year together, let's offer them our gratitude.
Janice, Nafisa, and Brenda, we pray this blessing on you today, coming from a place of admiration, gratitude, and partnership.
May you be joyful in your position, prayerful in your service, and grounded in your truth.
And may you live in the love of this church, always surrounding you, always holding you, always delighted by your presence.
And together we all say, Amen.
Amen.
And now it's a wonderful world.